there, people of the internet. My name is Edward Jagero, and this is Dialogues with Jagero. Today, I have a guest called Aino Luo, right?
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Like I told you, I can be better.
We'll make it better.
This week has been a bit of a roller coaster for me, you know. How are you yourself? Like, really, how are you doing?
I think really, how am I doing? The trend is upwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like many aspects of my life, like, you know, the puzzle pieces are coming together. And I was sick a couple of weeks ago. Now I feel better. You know, every time you're sick, like when you're healthy again, you're like, I can take over this world.
Yeah. You know, when you are born as a human being, then you start growing, then you become a young woman, and then you have these dreams. Do you feel like the dreams that you used to have as a young girl, are they being accomplished?
Well, I always dreamed about living abroad, so that's what I'm doing. I always dreamed about being in the urban planning field. I got to do that already. I'm not doing that now, so that's one dream done. I always dreamed of living in China as well. That's something I've done. So I feel like maybe these couple past years have been really coming up with new dreams, you know, because I actually achieved a lot of my dreams already in my 20s, and now I'm in my 30s, and it's time for new dreams.
I have lived in Europe, and I've been to Europe several times. I think I've gone to about 15 European countries.
Maybe more than me.
Maybe more than you.
Maybe.
I'm not surprised. So Europe is a great place for people who are seeing it for the first time. You know, you drop at, let's say, Frankfurt. You drop at, you know, how do you pronounce your hell what?
Helsinki. Hell what? Hell sin.
Helsinki or Amsterdam or any other place, and it looks really beautiful. But what I've realized when you now start staying there is that a lot of people are minding their own business. Like the neighbors hardly talk to each other. People are always in this wake up, go to work, come back, watch something, sleep. You know, give birth to one child or no child at all, and go on living. I mean, what is your overall overview of Europe as it is right now? Is it the heaven that we think it is?
I think I can only speak for myself, right? Yeah. So it definitely was not the heaven for me in my 20s because I didn't find it very dynamic. I actually preferred to be somewhere where there's a lot of things happening, and, you know, a developing city, country would be that place where you find that, you know, everyone's hustling and something new is always going on. So that was the heaven for me. I feel like for somebody who likes to mind their own business, maybe for someone with a family, I think Helsinki can be a very, very good place. I mean, I can't speak for the entire Europe because, you know, it varies a lot also in different parts of Europe. But really it depends what you want from your life. If you want a good work-life balance, if you want a safe environment for your kids, if you want to focus on your own things, I think it can be the heaven.
There are a lot of people in Africa that are trying to migrate to Europe.
Yes.
You know, and I have a lot of things to say about it, you know. For example, if you asked me if I would like to go and live, for example, in Gjøvik, Norway, or Oslo, Norway, I would have a resounding no. I wouldn't go there and live there. I would like to go there and visit, go to the fjords and look at the, you know, all the beautiful things, you know, go to your country and look at all the, you know, but I wouldn't go there and live because of the things I have seen, the organic nature of Africa and things like that. What would you tell somebody who is saying, I want to go and live, for example, in Finland?
I think it's always a good idea to speak with people who are from there, speak with people maybe from your background who have been there, and really kind of try to see what was difficult for them, what did they appreciate. And, you know, you can never compare your story to someone else's story, so you really have to see, like, does this resonate with what I want from my life? And I think with everything it comes back to your own values and what you are, you know, prioritizing in your life at that very moment, because there is no perfect place on this earth. I mean, I come from the world's happiest country for 7th year in a row, so it's not based on nothing. Finland does really, really well when, we compare almost any statistics, so there are reasons why it's a good place to be, but it might not be a good place for you. And I mean, of course, you will never know until you actually go and try it for yourself, but I think what you can try to do, of course, if you have a chance to visit before you make the decision, that's a good thing. But really, talk to people, watch maybe content from people who are there, and see how the everyday life looks like. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about you as a person. What I'm interested in is learning about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I'm very interested in knowing about your name, why you are called by a name that is basically Luo.
Yeah.
When I first saw you and I was looking at your name, I was like, oh, she came and christened herself Luo, which is very interesting. So tell me about your name.
I think my name is actually a pretty good intro to me as a person and my story.
Yeah.
So a lot of people assume that I took my man's tribe as my name,
Yeah.
but that is a coincidence, a happy coincidence. I was given the name Luo, I think maybe 12 years ago when I started studying Chinese.
Yeah.
So the thing in China is that when you are there, you basically need to have a Chinese name because, they don't use the ABC writing system. They use their own characters. So you have to adopt a name that can be written with those characters.
Yes.
So Luo, or Luo, is actually my Chinese name. And people were calling me Luo in China, and it was in my Instagram name in the past when I came to Kenya, and when people were adding me on Instagram, they started calling me Luo, and the name kind of stuck from China to Kenya. And when I started my YouTube, I was like, my real family name, I felt like, I didn't want to put my real family name for, I don't know, I just felt like it doesn't really flow. It's not a very sexy family name, like, I don't know. So I just felt like something shorter might be nice, and Luo is very short, so I took that. And I feel like since I started my channel here in Kenya, and since I was making content about Kenya, it kind of fit. So
great.
Yeah.
And how about yourself? Where were you born? In a family of how many? I just want to listen to that story without interrupting. Yeah.
Sure. So I was born in 1992 in Helsinki, and to two parents, and I also have an older sibling. So I think we were a pretty normal family. My parents, though, are a little bit older. My dad has even passed already than you would normally assume for a person my age. So they were born right after the wars, the Second World War. So that was maybe the only difference that I could see, with the people around me. We had a nice house, big for all of us, and if we ever had any money issues, which I've been told that we did, I never saw it. So, I had a stable childhood in that sense. But yeah, the neighborhood where I come from is not exactly the best of neighborhoods. If you look at any stats, it's one of the places with most crime, and there's a lot of social issues there, alcoholism, single parents, these days a lot of refugees as well, and a lot of people depending on social security. So that's kind of, the vibe I would see in school. And
What is it called?
The neighborhood?
Yeah.
Malmi. So if there's any Finnish person listening, Malmi is known all over Finland, not just.
Is it the Malmo that has the? Is it Malmo?
No, Malmi.
Malmi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is it like? Well, we know, for example, why Kibera is the way it is. Why was that part of Finland the way it is?
I'm not quite sure. I know that Malmi used to be its own kind of town before it was made part of Helsinki. So I honestly don't know why it ended up the way it is. It was, I guess, never really a priority. I have to say, in Helsinki and in Finland, we don't have very extreme differences between neighborhoods, but of course differences will always exist. So yeah, it was one of the maybe more unfortunate ones. So I remember this, if we go a bit further in time, when I was in middle school. So I always studied very hard. I was very good in school. And that was kind of the way I saw for myself to get out of that neighborhood and the lifestyle. You know, I saw, you know, being a teenage mom and, you know, maybe using drugs and stuff like that. I didn't want that. So I always studied hard to get to better and better schools. In Finland, we don't pay for school, but you do have to get good grades to get to the good schools. So in middle school, there was one night I came from boxing class. I mean, I still had a bit of these kind of hobbies, you know, basketball, boxing, stuff like that. I came home, it was maybe 10, 11 p.m. and I'm walking towards home and I see someone running with a knife in the marketplace, and I'm like, you know, getting a little bit scared, and then I notice that it's my classmate and I'm like, oh, hi, how are you doing? So, you know, this is kind of what I saw growing up. And we would have to have with my mom these kind of codes, like if I feel like someone's following me, I would call my mom and say, I think it's about to start raining, and then my mom would come, you know, to get me. So it wasn't the safest of neighborhoods. But yeah, I kind of made it out from there in a sense, by studying hard, going to other districts to school. And I went to one of the so-called elite high schools in Finland. And again, it's not elite in the same sense that you don't need to have money to get there. You just need to have really good grades. But of course, then I kind of met a very different demographic in Finland, you know, sons and daughters of some of the biggest business owners of the country and things like this. So it was quite a different world for me. My parents, like me and my sibling, we were the first ones in the family to get like a university education. So I mean, it was just I feel like in my family it's been quite important maybe for my parents to kind of raise from one social class sort of to another, even if the differences in Finland are not that big. But I feel like that they succeeded in.
Yeah. What did you study at the university?
I studied geography, specializing in urban planning. So that's my profession from my previous life.
Urban planning?
Yeah.
Do you think the Nairobi planners did a very good job at planning? Now that you did urban planning.
Well,
I want to be very honest.
I recently published one video on my channel talking about the third places in Nairobi. So first place would be home, second place would be your workplace, and third place anything, you know, outside of that. And my criticism in that video, although there's so many things to do in Nairobi, there really is, but a lot of them require money. So if I compare it to Helsinki, we have so many different things you can do even without any money, free things. Like there's free outdoor gyms with like proper weights and stuff. And here, like, how much do you need to pay per month to be in a decent gym? Like it's it's super expensive. So that was my criticism. I am thinking of making another video talking about maybe like transportation and green infrastructure. But those were really not my specialization, so I've been a little bit, you know, on the edge, like, should I make this video? Because, you know, I'm not the, you know, most knowledgeable person in this world about the topic. But, yeah, I feel like there's some things that could be better. The thing I would say I miss most from, you know, be it Helsinki or be it Wuhan or Beijing, where I've lived before, is the public transport for sure. Like, the fact that this big of a city doesn't have a rail system, for example, you know, it makes things a bit tricky on the roads. Yeah.
Okay. So you finished school. What is the first country that you visit after, you know, after finishing the university?
After finishing university, I think I went straight to China. I mean, I did my exchange year in Wuhan already during my studies. So between my bachelor's and master's. Before that, I had visited some, European countries. But yeah, I had gotten this idea during my high school, university first years that I want to live in China. I was so interested in the massive urbanization going on in the country. And Wuhan was actually pretty much a construction site when I, lived there. So it was perfect for me. And China was this kind of an obsession for me for most of my 20s, and I'm really, really happy I had the chance to live there. And actually, the story of how I ended up in Kenya is related, because, then when I came back, I did my master's, I ended a relationship that I was in Finland, and, a couple of years passed, then COVID starts, and I'm like, shit, I'm approaching my 30s, there's COVID, I still want to live abroad, what am I going to do? And, COVID went away, and then when the bans were lifted, I was like, okay, now or never. Who knows, maybe in a couple of years I'm going to be married and with kids and I can't do this anymore. So I was just thinking, China was still pretty much closed up, and it didn't really feel like a very welcoming place for a foreigner to go. So I started thinking what could be another region in the world that could be interesting in some of the same ways that I found China to be, where, people are coming up with new ideas, where, the cities are growing. And then I don't remember where I originally got the idea, but Nairobi came to my mind. I had been to Cape Town before, and it's not exactly the deepest Africa, so I felt I'm
interested to know what you thought about Cape Town, because I've gone there, let's say 3-4 times, and it's a white country, is it not? It's a white town, yeah?
Yeah, well, I was there with a black friend of mine, so I also saw other things than the white Cape Town. So, first of all, we could really, moving around together, we could really see how unusual it seemed to people. So I did not really like that, racial division thing that was super clear there, because I've never cared. I went to school with people from everywhere in the world. I've never cared about these things. So I did not want to go back there, although I have to say, nature-wise, it's a gorgeous city, Cape Town. Wow.
It's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. I didn't really experience that much, of nightlife or that kind of thing, because it was still COVID, the end of COVID when I visited, so we didn't go out much or anything. But I just felt I think there is more to see in Africa than just this. It was pretty obvious. So I started asking my friends. I knew quite a bit of West Africans. I knew people from Ghana, from Nigeria, friends I had made in China, in Finland, and also when traveling. Nigeria I was not really considering, because even the Nigerians told me, don't go.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Which I think is a lie, because Nigeria is really, really, really a cool place.
I have to say I've really liked I used to work with Nigerians also, so I've always liked the vibe. But people were recommending me either to go to Ghana or Kenya. And since I knew more about Ghana, I was also thinking to travel Christmas period, so there may have even been some people there who I knew who could show me around. But then I looked at the prices and I was like, I can't afford this. Prices to Ghana around Christmas, the whole diaspora is traveling back. It was crazy. So I was like, okay, let's check Nairobi, and the prices were a bit more decent. So at that point, I was pretty fed up with my life.
This is you already back from China.
Yeah, I had been back from China
because
already
a few years. Because I wanted to ask you a little bit about China.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Before
sure.
we start we move away from China.
Yes.
Right now, even the US is envious of China and the kind of technological advancement that is happening there. They have decided that we are going to really move at a terrific speed and leave the world behind in every aspect of life, basically. If you living there, what did you think of what do you think of the people of China? Why is it that they have been made to hustle so much? You want this thing and you tell them I want something like this and they will give it to you. The other day I was looking at them there's a guy who made an iPhone, a real iPhone from the ground up, like bought all the materials. It was how many? It was about 42 parts that he bought from AliExpress and made the phone. And the video, I think, has got about 2.5 million views in about a month. And he went with the audience, like everybody was looking at him assembling this phone. And at the end of it all, he told the people, now let's get ready for that time. And then he held on to the power. And the thing booted. And he had an iPhone in his hand, made with original products of the iPhone. And everything was coming to, I think, $404. And the kind of phone that he was making is going for about $1,200. I hope that you're enjoying Dialogues with Jagero. Now, I have interrupted this program to tell you something amazing that I have been doing for the last 1 year. I've been writing another book. But before I tell you about this, I want to tell you something. 92% of podcasts that have been started die in their first 3 to 6 months. That is not a good thing. Just after writing 18 Hustles for Africans, which has sold thousands of copies, I have written another book called The Playbook. The Playbook is about YouTube and podcasting and how to go big the way I have done in the last 1 month. And in this book, I have done everything to make it easier for you, discovering the secrets of crafting captivating narratives that hook viewers and leave them wanting more. I have put that in the book. How about creating compelling videos? From scripting and storyboarding to shooting and editing, this book provides a comprehensive framework. But again, everybody wants to make money. That's why I've talked about monetizing your content or your channel. In this book, you'll explore multiple revenue streams, from ad revenue to brand partnership and selling your own products to turning your passion into a huge profit. Now, this book has got proven strategies, and I am the king of social media. I go viral. So how about leveraging social media? Learn how to effectively promote your YouTube channel or podcast across various platforms, reaching a wider audience and driving traffic to your videos. This book also has in-depth insights, and I cannot fail to talk to you about this. What people do not know is the algorithm that runs behind every podcast and YouTube. Now, this guide decodes the complexities of the YouTube algorithm, revealing how it influences video ranking, recommendation, and overall audience engagement. If you want to know how to get this book, or rather this ebook, I have left everything in the description below. So, how much is the book? The book is 1,500 only. And now, back to programming. What do you think makes the Chinese very good at making things?
Well, I mean, it was basically the world's factory for a very long time, and still is. I think some production has been moved to cheaper countries by now, like Vietnam. But I'm sure that they adopted quite a lot of skills from the time that they were basically making everything, for the world, all the tech, all the clothing, everything. So I'm sure there's some of that left. But I think it's really kind of everyone who's been to China, knows that it's like the people's mindset in many ways is like the most capitalistic you can find in the world. They are so entrepreneurial. Even if you look at the Chinese diaspora everywhere else in the world, like even if you don't have a common language, they have a calculator. You will figure it out together, That's how it is. Like, you don't need to speak Chinese to be able to do business with Chinese. But yeah, I loved it. I wasn't that focused on all the technological development when I lived in Wuhan and Beijing. But I really liked, especially older Chinese people, they are living their best lives. They they have retired quite early. They are meeting in the parks, doing all kinds of fun things, and the kids and grandkids are taking care of them. And Chinese people are often very ignorant, and they might end up saying things that we would consider very politically incorrect and not woke at all. But it never really bothered me because I understood the fact that they don't use even the same internet and social medias as we do. So how can they know? A lot of these trends are on social media. So I felt like maybe due to the fact that I actually spoke Chinese and I really was willing to immerse myself in the culture, they were so accepting of me. They would like to have, maybe I go buy tea and I end up sitting 3 hours in the tea house, chatting about world and what I think about China with the owners. And they would be so interested to listen and say like, wow, you seem to understand China better than even us do. Because, as an outsider, you see some things that the locals might not see. And that's why I also think it's good to listen to the people who come to your country from somewhere else and what they think and what they see. Yeah. You
know an African, a typical African, let's say a typical African living in Nairobi, like you have a boyfriend who is African. You have lived with your friends in Europe, all right? And then there is you've interacted with the Chinese. So for example, we have let's say an African man, an African person in Nairobi, a European. That's you, and we have a Chinese. How do you think these people think? Do they think alike?
I feel like maybe my friend group, most people do think alike because of course I select certain type of people around me. But again, it really depends on what circles you find yourself in. But I do think that, let's say in Finland, a lot of people are quite, they don't really know like what kind of challenges people elsewhere in the world have. I'm not saying people in Finland don't have challenges. There are a lot of challenges, especially mental health is a big thing. But I mean, I don't know how it feels to be hungry, for example, which a lot of people elsewhere in the world do. I'm not saying every Kenyan knows how to be hungry. There's many people who have always had their bellies full. But for example, my boyfriend doesn't. Like, he has that experience. I remember just a few weeks ago, I asked him, how does it feel to be hungry? Because I don't really know.
Yeah.
And I don't think the majority...
You don't know what it feels to be hungry?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, of course, the daily kind of, I feel a bit hungry.
You would say once in a while that I'm starved, but...
Yeah, I'm not actually starved, I'm very well nourished, and I've always been. And I remember, like, I was talking about some couple. It was, I think, an African man and a Finnish woman, and they were really struggling to... meet because I think they were both quite low income and, I think it was somebody, maybe even in my family, who said like, oh, if the guy wants to come, he will find a way to come. And I'm like, do you even understand what it takes to get the visa, especially if you're not married? Do you understand this man is probably supporting the entire family and he can't just, leave work for a month and buy like 800 euro tickets to Europe? Like, it's not a small deal. And I remember even the first summer when me and my boyfriend were together, I went to Finland and I went to like a friend's baby shower. And the people there knew that I live in Nairobi, I have a boyfriend there, and they are like, why didn't your boyfriend come to visit? I'm like, it's not that simple, like it's quite a bit of planning and budgeting and paperwork to make something like that happen. And I think in Kenya for the first time I have wished that I had more money. Because when you and that's also an awkward part about a relationship like that I'm a woman and I actually like quite traditional roles in a relationship. But bringing my boyfriend to Finland, I have to actually carry quite a lot of responsibility. I have to fill papers like, yes, I'm sponsoring him to stay in my place and, that kind of stuff that I don't think either of us likes that. We would wish that the roles were reversed. But it's not like that. You have to go through these awkward, uncomfortable things in an international relationship sometimes, unless you both are loaded.
Yeah. So let's go back then to you coming to Kenya. You've checked Nairobi. You've checked Ghana. You're saying the entire world of Ghana is going back to Ghana. So it's pretty expensive. Then you check Nairobi. How does that pan out?
So there was a funny thing. It was actually a man from Ghana who had told me in Finland, like, you should have went to Ghana. Like, the men there are much better looking. And I was like, I don't believe that. Like, I had never met a Kenyan man, but I was like, okay, I'll make it my case to prove that there are good-looking Kenyan men. So I remember I was bored, okay? So before, like when I had booked my tickets to Kenya, I downloaded Bumble. I took 1 week trial of that, whatever feature that you can go to another place in the world. I went to Nairobi and I started swiping. And, I remember sending that guy like every good-looking man's picture who I came across.
Yeah.
So I mean, that silly, experiment led to me actually talking to a lot of people, men in Nairobi. And that was kind of my way to see, like, what do these men do? Like, what are some, of course, Bumble has a certain demographic who uses it, but like, what are the professions people do? What are their hobbies? Like, where do they like to spend their time? So through talking to these dudes, I started kind of, getting an idea of what's up in Nairobi. So when I came here, first I just chilled in Diani. It was New Year, 21, 22, I think. So I was just chilling there and, minding my own business. I come to Nairobi and I went clubbing quite a bit. I went to dance classes. Those were the two things I wanted to do in Nairobi. And I mean, I was just enjoying it. It was something completely new. I had never been to a place like this. So I would take my laptop, go to a cafe. I started job hunting, actually, because I was like, okay, let's find a job here. It wasn't that easy. It took me actually 1.5 years to really land a job that could sustain me here. I did some other stuff in between that didn't pay me enough to, sustain my life. Because this is the tricky thing, when somebody from Kenya, let's say, goes to Finland and has a job there, they can probably, with that salary from Finland, they can even send money back here. It's enough to sustain, maybe if you have loans or family to support. It doesn't really work the same way when, you come from a higher income country and you come here and you start earning local salary. So I still had loans to pay back in Finland, and I was earning like a African startup salary here for a while, and that could have sustained me to live here in Nairobi. I was living a fairly humble life, but I was using my savings to pay the loan payments every month. So at some point I ran out of money and I had to go back home, but luckily then I got a message that I got another job.
Here in the country?
Yes. So then I came back.
Was this better paying?
Yes. It's still a local contract, but I have a fairly high position, so it can sustain me.
So that's the job that you're doing up to today?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you mind talking about that job? No?
No, I'm not allowed.
Yeah, very good. All right, so you come to Kenya in 2021.
Yeah, last days of 2021.
Been here all the time?
Well, I did have to go back and forth a little bit, but I never stayed away longer than 3 months at a time. So, yeah.
How the government? So the government, for example, I know that if you travel for example, to Europe on a visit visa, then you can't work here. You can work in the UK in Europe. Does it happen like that in Kenya?
Like you mean that I would work in Finland when I visit?
Like if you come here on a visit visa.
Yeah, you're not allowed to work. Yeah. So I was lucky that I found an opportunity where they could sort out all of that for me, that I'm legally working here.
All right, great. That's good. So let's talk about, you have told me that you wanted to move abroad. But for what, though?
I feel like, it started feeling like in Finland it was kind of, I had done all the side quests possible, and I had, even on dating apps, I just kept, seeing the same faces year after year, and like I had walked every street, and my job was the same, month after month, and I just felt like there was nothing new for me to explore in that stage of my life. And as I said, maybe in another phase of life, maybe if I have my own family, that will be, another lens to experience the place from. But in that, in my mid to late 20s, single, young professional kind of life, I had seen it all. There was nothing left for me to explore.
Yeah. My interest is why Africa? You could have gone to Barcelona. You
Yeah.
have gone to London.
I have to say, when things have been difficult here, I've been wondering, like, I could have chosen a, easier place also. Like, maybe somewhere, maybe the flights will be a bit less expensive to go back home. Maybe it will be easier to find a job and get the permits. And there's also cheaper places in the world than Nairobi to live in. But yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it was just that, I wanted to see a developing dynamic place. And I mean, at least in my circles, like Nairobi is considered like the capital of Africa. And I just got this idea that I want to live in Africa one day. I also, I know Amapiano and Afrobeats are not from Kenya, but, there was also that soft cultural power maybe that, I had been dancing to African music, been to African clubs, and I was like, making friends from different parts of the continent. I was like, yeah, why not? Let's see what's up there. But yeah, and then of course, when I found my boyfriend, then it became, a big reason to come specifically here.
Yeah. So, you come to Africa. A lot of people, in Europe say, wherever you're going to any part of Africa, you're coming to Africa anyway. So, did you have that idea that, well, I'm not going to Nairobi, I'm just coming to Africa?
Maybe in the beginning, I did realize it would be different. But I think, yes, in the beginning, the main motivation was like somewhere in Africa. I have a friend here who grew up in Senegal, and they had that same idea when they moved here to Nairobi, that, it's just going to be Africa. And they have had a real culture shock. They are saying that it's a completely different world, like there's almost nothing that is the same. So, I mean, it's a massive continent where people also, it's super expensive to fly to another country. There's not, the types of programs like Erasmus that we have in Europe, young people going to university exchange and getting, scholarships for that. There's not a lot of movement like that between Africans. So, I've only ever seen Cape Town and then different places in Kenya, so I'm no expert in how different parts of Africa look, but I think there will be a lot more variety than what people expect.
Let's talk about living in Kenya, specifically Nairobi. Let's start with the easier ones. What exactly do you love? Love, that you go to Finland today and immediately you land there, you're like, oh shit, I'm going to miss this and this and that.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious in Finland's case that the weather here is better. We have stupidly long winters. It's a struggle. I don't mind the cold as much as I mind the darkness. The darkness is the difficult part for me. And also, I'm a bit into, conscious type of living, and here I go regularly to women's circles where women are sharing about, their experiences of, being a woman in this world, the challenges, the joys, and there's, different kind of ceremonial experiences, and I found a really, really nice community here for that, which I never found in Finland. Of course, there's, hippies everywhere, but I never found that same kind of very grounded vibe in Finland. I also like the fact that I can learn new things. I feel like curiosity is one of the main drivers for me in my life. There's always something new to learn. And of course, when you find your people, your places, you get attached. I have to say, I live nicer here, in a nicer place than what I could afford in Finland. It's, again, I'm saying Nairobi is not exactly a cheap place to live, but I have been able to upgrade my living situation a little bit. So that's something I enjoy. I get to, have a beautiful home. And of course I love my boyfriend, so yeah.
Okay. Those are the things you love. How about about housing? A lot of Europeans struggle with housing. I don't know why. Why do you think they struggle? Because even if you go to visit a friend in Amsterdam, you find them living in a very dingy kind of flat. It's not beautiful. It's just, in Africa you find very big houses.
Yeah, in Finland, I think even if you look stats, Finnish people live quite small compared to other European countries. I remember well, of course, students are always a different thing, but most of my friends in the university, they used to live in 20 square meter, little boxes. And yeah, I don't know. Also, my place back home, it's good for one person, but, not more than that. If you go to the countryside, of course, then you can live in a bigger house. But I think, Helsinki, I don't know, this knowledge is from a few years ago, but Helsinki used to be one of the fastest growing cities in Europe. So that would, of course, affect, there was an imbalance of, housing and the people coming there, so that, put the prices up quite a bit. And I feel like in Europe, at least in my circles, people kind of like to live in a very central area, so that is very expensive, of course. But you guys have a lot of land here. There's, even in Nairobi, sometimes, this is not an insult to Nairobi, but sometimes this does not look like a city to me. This looks more like countryside when you go away from maybe Westlands and CBD, because the plots people have are massive. And I'm like, how can they have such big, land in the middle of the city? In Europe, there's this idea of, how do you say, kind of tight mixed development. That's also where you can more easily build public transportation and stuff. So you're not going to build a bus stop or a tram stop or a metro station for, a few huge plots of land. You have to have a massive housing development for that to make sense. I don't know. Maybe these can be some of the reasons.
Yeah. How is the food like in Nairobi, in Kenya? Do you like the food?
I do. There's a few things. I do miss chapo when I travel to Finland. It's not something we often eat. I have to say, I feel like here the food is a little bit bland, but I don't mind it because it's also bland in Finland. So I'm used to it. I don't need all these, if you look at Chinese or Indian cuisine, they have so many spices and very rich flavors. So for me, the food here, of course it's different food, but it's not, the style of it is not very different to Finland.
What's your favorite? Is it ugali and omena?
I do eat ugali and omena, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite. We do cook it regularly. My boyfriend makes really nice fish. I like that one. And I think, chapo with maybe coconut beans, it's really nice. Simple things. Those everyday foods that nourish you and also keep your budget in check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your biggest frustration? Let's talk about your frustrations. We all call them problems, but the frustration. And I want us to be very, and like I told you before the interview, it's important to, I think when you're talking about, for example, people have asked, the last time I was in Norway, there's this old lady that was telling me, asking me, how do you find the people of Norway? And I was telling her that I find them very cold. You look at somebody and they don't seem to have a life it's not very organic. Somebody would be smiling at you and then they're just going their own ways. Even when you look at them sitting on in a parking lot, the niceties are very cold, You feel like you're always walking in eggshells if you are in Europe. But obviously, of course, if you are a black person in Europe, you feel like everybody's watching you. It's not nice. Do you feel like everybody's watching you here as a white woman?
Yes.
How so?
Simple, yes. Yeah, they are always watching. They often also are shouting.
Doing what?
Shouting.
Shouting at you?
Yeah.
What do they shout?
Well, mostly Muzungu, give us money, or sometimes they shout very derogatory things, but I don't go to those areas anymore where that happens.
Yeah, so it's just particular places in the city.
No, shouting happens everywhere, and the more assaultive things happen only in certain places. Yeah.
So you obviously the first time I was in your Vic, Norway, somebody was really pissed off at just seeing a black man. You know, and he approached very aggressively.
But
like,
were you in a okay, I don't know anything about Norway,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
like I grew up in neighborhoods where
Yeah.
like 15% of people are black, so no one's watching you there if you're black.
So you'd do you feel like because we have when people talk about racism, right? They are always talking about whites being racist against blacks. Correct? But then you come to white friends of mine have come to Nairobi and saying that I faced a little bit of racism because of looking white.
I have definitely faced like actual racism. Like there's a person who has come to talk to me that, you know, the black race is the superior race, you know, where the humanity started, and you whites are, you know, a lower race of people. I feel like that is the definition of racism, right?
Yeah.
So I've faced that. I feel like, okay, what I'm gonna say now is none of my, you know, I don't know the racists in Finland. I have always, you know, went far away from anybody who thinks like that. So I think I have lived in the kind of bubble, you know, I came from neighborhoods with a lot of immigrants, refugees. I have always had friends who travel the world. I even have friends who have like partners from different countries, some of them also from different ethnicities. So like in my circle in Finland, racism doesn't exist. And even the black friends who I have there, they don't face it because they live in the same bubble. Of course, there is racism in Finland, but I feel maybe what could be the difference is that is it structural or is it more on a personal level? So yeah, it is structural in the sense that if I want to bring my boyfriend to Finland, it's so damn difficult because, you know, Finland doesn't let a Kenyan man just, you know, easily travel there. So maybe that could be structural racism. I know Kenyans in Finland, and all of them are saying to me they have never faced any racism on the streets. So I think there would be less of that, at least in Helsinki, you know, in big cities where people are used to people from other places. What I've experienced here is not so much structural, except for the fact that I pay my tax to this country and I'm still not able to vote, which, you know, in Finland, if you are a resident, a tax-paying resident, you can vote in the municipal election. So I don't have that type of right
Would you
here.
love to vote here?
I don't know if it would make much of a difference, but, you know, if I pay tax to a certain country, I think, you know, you should have some rights, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, I'm fine. I don't have to vote. You know, you guys take care of your things. But, you know, I am a resident. I live here. And that, in my country, it's acknowledged. Even if you are Kenyan, if you're a resident and you pay tax, you can vote, at least in municipal elections. But what I do face here a lot is, you know, this kind of, you know, on the streets, like, let's say I'm walking somewhere with my boyfriend, there still might be a man who, like, grabs me and says, like, give me that white woman. There might be a lady who comes to my boyfriend, like, you know, call me when she flies back home, you know, stuff like that, which I can't say, you know, I'm not black in Finland, but I've never heard from my black friends that they would have to face that kind of disrespect in Finland. I think Finnish people don't really express if they have an issue with you. That's also a difference in character, you know?
Yeah.
There might be a silent racist there, rather than, you know, here they might actually voice it out.
Yeah.
Then, of course, there's the, you know, accusations of me being a colonialist, which is a bit funny because Finland never had any colonies, and you know, our country has been ruled by Sweden and Russia, and my upcountry, I can't travel there because another country took it, and I had to study Swedish in school because Sweden used to rule Finland hundreds of years ago. So, like, you know, it's not colonial in the same sense as, you know, what the British and French and whoever did in Africa. Of course, it's not the same thing. But I don't really feel connected, you know, just because I'm white doesn't really mean that I have much connection to that part of European history. Then there's been things like, yeah, I am online, right? So I get much more than, you know, a standard white person would. So there's been people coming to tell me that I am only in Africa for Black BBC. And that's very funny to me because I don't know who still thinks that women have to travel abroad to, get certain aspects of their life fulfilled. But I've never had any issue. And like in Helsinki, we have, people of every color. Me, I don't have a preference. I don't care if you're purple, if you're a good man to me, So I don't have such preference, but even if you would have a preference, you can find 10 Nigerians in a nightclub in Helsinki in one night. Like, it's not an issue. Like, women can actually move countries for, their personal reasons, their career development, such things. There's been people who have said that I am only here to abuse young Kenyan men and make, mixed babies with them and then steal the baby and go back home, which I don't know, where are people coming up with these things? Like, what kind of a massive projection is that? Because that's like the furthest from my character and how I present myself in this world and how I treat other people. I always try to, I try my best to only put out like good vibes and treat people in a way that maybe at least I don't leave them in a worse condition than, when I met them. So yeah, there's a lot of projections that I have to deal with.
Yeah, how does that make you feel?
I mean, of course it can ruin your day if you let it. I think, unfortunately, I've become a little bit like, how do you say, desensitized? Is that the word?
Yeah.
Because, I know who I am. I think if you know who you are and you're proud of the way you show up in the world, these things can't really get to you that much. What I don't like, though, is that I am actually trying to build bridges. Like, I studied a multidisciplinary degree. I've learned languages. I have always had a very mixed international friend group. Like, the way I show up in this world is to build bridges and not bring division. And I would like my, community on social media to reflect that. And unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't. So that's maybe the part that I don't like. I also want, let's say I make a video, I also want people in the comment section to feel safe. And there's been like tribal wars going on in my comment section.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm like,
What kind of tribal wars?
Somebody,
like racial war or tribal war?
So somebody came to say, colonialist, blah, blah, blah. And then like somehow under that comment section, somebody came to say that Luos and Kikuyus are not Kenyans. And then like, it blew up. I'm like, whoa.
Do you think that perhaps some people did, the way they say that people always say things because of what they have learned through history? Do you think that there are white women that have come to Africa and did those things?
Yes.
And then everybody that now comes and follows those women think that every woman that is coming is following suit?
Sometimes these Uber drivers that you would not expect to have a good conversation with, you actually end up having a good conversation. And there was this old man who just said to me, like, yeah, once in the forest path, a snake attacks you, and the next time you're going to be afraid of a stick.
Yeah.
It looks like a snake, but it's not a snake. So I think that's probably what's happening.
So probably they think that you're a stick.
Yeah, to me, it's just interesting. Like, also people have been coming to attack me. Some people who are aware of like European politics. We have a bit more, I have to say, racist government at the moment. And people come to accuse me in the comment section for that government. And I'm like, what makes you think that I voted for them? Like, very well that in your country, people vote for different people to the government. How can you, I would have never voted for, certain people that are sitting in our government at the moment. So for me, it's just funny, can we just see each other as people?
Yeah. I agree that we should see each other as people. And that is what you'd love to see here more.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes there's a very low vibes, I have to say Kenyans are good in bringing up the vibe, in partying and stuff, but I think it's due to the fact that, I mingle with a lot of different types of people. I don't live in a bubble. And, through my boyfriend, I get to meet maybe, people in different socioeconomic classes than, where maybe the people who I meet in the office are not. And, then I have my expat friends. I really see quite a variety of people. And the fact that I am online, you're going to get a lot of shit. I feel, especially as a woman, maybe.
Yeah.
And especially as an immigrant.
Do you consider yourself an immigrant or an expatriate? Because that's a very big conversation. When people go to Europe, they're called immigrants. When the whites come here, they're called expats.
So I think it depends how you define. So if you consider an expat as somebody who got sent by their organization, now you go to work 2 years in Nairobi and then you come back. I am not that. I came here alone and I found my job myself. And who knows how long I will stay. I think in that case I'm an immigrant. I'm not an expat. But if you consider expat according to the duration of your stay, then I don't know yet. I don't know. If I'm going to stay here 10 years, I think that makes me an immigrant. If I leave after, let's say, 3 years, yeah, maybe you can put me in the expat box. But, I'm here on a local contract. I don't know. Depends how you define an expat. Yeah. I have to say, when I spend time with expat solely group, I don't feel like I belong. I'm not living the same life as them. They are often not allowed to take a boda or a matatu. I went to the event with a boda, So it's...
And that is a question that I want to ask you because it is very important in some of the things that probably bringing heads together.
Yeah.
The Africans living in this city and the whites living in this city. So you see a group of very wealthy expats that are driving around in V8s and red-plated cars.
Yeah.
And they're having a very good life. They can show up in a cafe and leave 8,000 behind, and then you always see them in particular neighborhoods. Like the UN will tell their people where exactly to live.
Yeah.
So you find a group of very white people living a very good, extremely good life.
Yeah.
In a country that is not theirs, quote unquote. And so you find that we had people who came and colonized us.
Yeah.
And you see even in West Africa, where the central bank of a West African country is still headquartered in France. You see, and so black people in this city are seeing this group of people who colonized them before and call them all sorts of names, coming back and living a very extremely good life, and then. Do you think that sort of brings this hatred that you are colonists, you're still colonizers, so
yeah.
So they take Aino and bundle them together with people working for the US embassy. Do you think that could be a problem?
For sure. It's quite interesting. There is a WhatsApp group for Finnish people in Kenya, and I've been to a couple of their events, and whenever I'm trying to ask for some advice, I'm not getting that advice from these people because they are employed by Finland, They are very, very much connected to their home country still, especially if you work in an embassy. And again, that's where, am I an expat? Am I an immigrant? Because I'm not like these people. They maybe hear my job title, which, sounds like their job titles, but then they see my lifestyle, they see who I'm together with, and they're like, oh, they get confused. I definitely think that the history of colonialism is still visible in Nairobi, and I'm sure that, people are upset about that, and maybe sometimes rightfully so. And there's also a thing called gentrification in urban planning, which can happen anywhere, no matter who does it. But, kind of affordable neighborhoods changing into, very exclusive ones, that maybe the people who lived there before can no longer afford. And then there's things like, how do you say, let's say you have a fancy cafe, and if the barista cannot, if they have to commute 1 hour to get to their own workplace, then, maybe you have a little bit too much segregation in the city if the barista cannot live in the area where she works. So there's a lot of that in Nairobi. What I can say is that I will always mingle with anyone. I am not looking at their passports. I am not looking at their bank accounts. And I do have these expat friends who you talked about who are living this lavish life. And you find very different characters there also. Like, you know, you find characters that I feel like, okay, I can be, you know, with you Nairobians in the same, like, this is not cool. This is not okay. Like, they are just taking. They are not giving anything. But then there's people who have just, you know, played their cards well in life, and now they are reaping the benefits of it, and they are actually trying to do something for the communities. They are actually putting an effort to learn the language, learn about what's going on in this place. And unfortunately, you know, as I said, for example, about the voting, they don't have a lot of power in this country to do much. Then there's like, you can also take this perspective, like, okay, do you want to be this like capital of Africa or capital of East Africa? If you do, then you kind of have to take the impact of there being a lot of expats and immigrants and headquarters of certain organizations, and that's what you're gonna get. That's what you would find in London, in okay, maybe not anymore, but in Moscow, in New York. Like, that's what you get. If you don't want to be the capital of Africa, then, you know, don't take those organizations and don't take those immigrants, expats, whatever. So what I would maybe say, I have to say I'm not much of an like activist personality. I appreciate that we need these people, but me personally, I'm more like trying to see how can I, you know, take advantage of this situation. So if I was a local Nairobian, I see, okay, we are now getting these headquarters, we are getting these people with purchasing power. What kind of business can I start to benefit from that? That's what I would do personally. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think life has a lot of you know, when South Africa was having a problem, they started attacking Nigerians, Tanzanians, and Malawians instead of saying, okay, what can I do? When I go to Cape Town, I find that most of the taxi drivers are not South Africans.
Yeah.
And you wonder, why is it that you're not driving taxis in your own country? And because I don't think that these people are actually coming to hijack your taxis. They're just coming to find openings and doing those things. So I agree with you, and I also understand the anger that sometimes you are walking past, you know, Lavington Mall, and you're going on your way to Kawangware, and you see these big cars, and people getting out of them are white, and you're wondering, what the hell are they doing there? Sometimes people living in Kawangware do not even know that these are actually people working for the UK embassy. They're working for the European embassy. So I think the world is like that, and sometimes we just have to see as it is, and probably interpret. And that's why I think a lot of people say that if you want to live longer in the world and you want to be happier, you must understand the root causes of everything.
Yeah. Why
are white men in Nairobi? Why are white people in Nairobi? And for white men in your country, they must understand, why are these people in this country? And
you can also find so many different reasons why somebody is here. So it was a very interesting experience when I went to one of the Finnish people's gatherings here, maybe a Christmas party or something. The only thing we had in common was the language. You know, there is the housewife who fell in love with a Kenyan man living somewhere in the countryside with 10 kids, a Finnish woman. There is the, you know, person working for the embassy. There is the, you know, somebody working in an NGO with an internship, like a 20-year-old, you know, chick straight out of high school, wanting to, you know, build their CV to go to certain types of career. There is a retired man who you know, likes African women and likes, you know, the beaches in Mombasa. You know, there's that character. There is a safari entrepreneur. Like, people are here for so many different reasons. You can't just look at someone, how they look, and assume their background, their reasons, their values. You can't.
I hope that you enjoy Kenya more, because I think Kenya is a very beautiful country. The people are very nice. You have a Kenyan boyfriend, so that gives you a lot of joy. You know, let's talk about some other fun things, like running a YouTube channel, content creation. How is that going for you? Are you earning loads of money from YouTube?
I wish I was. I mean, I would still consider myself a small YouTuber. I've passed like 6K subscribers, but most of the videos that do well are these informational videos about Kenya. And, you know, I've been here for 3 years. I can't forever keep speaking about how to move to Kenya, you know, best things about living in Nairobi. Like, you know, it's getting a bit old for me as well. But I do still make some of these videos because, you know, I know for a fact that I'm helping people. There was maybe a month ago, there were 3 days in a row that somebody came to me on the street and said like, hey, your videos helped me out too. There was a Kenyan man who grew up in the US and had been wanting to come back for a long time, but, you know, had been away for so long that he didn't know what was up. He said that my videos helped him to, you know, make that decision and come. And I really like providing that type of value, and I feel like I kind of, you know, if I know a lot about something, and, you know, that's also my competitive advantage because I am an expert on how to, you know, relocate, let's say, from Finland to Kenya. But, you know, we all go through different phases of life, and I might not be here forever. We might go with my partner to Finland at some point also. So I've been thinking, like, you know, what are those other things like that are actually me? You know, I'm not just a white person in Kenya. Like, there's interests that I have. Like, I'm really interested in like holistic wellness, you know, nutrition, fitness, and your mental health, personal development, these kind of things. So that's what you will find more in my vlog type of posts. I think that if you are, you know, doing YouTube in Africa, if you are wanting to, like, let's say if you are from Europe like me, you cannot expect the same type of ad revenue from African viewership as you would from, let's say, the US. We talked a little bit about the kind of the underdeveloped influencer market and content, you know, brand deals and, you know, things like this. There's not really a lot of like agencies and, you know, even awareness maybe among some Kenyan brands, how much they could do with influencers. So it's very hard to tap into those kind of opportunities compared to some other countries where, you know, I've looked into a little bit like how does it work in Finland, and there's like you can subscribe to a lot of different agencies and they will find you these opportunities, they will send you PR gifts, they will invite you to PR events, and, you know, it's a little bit easier to build your, you know, income streams through social media. And yeah, if you want to do YouTube here, I think you kind of have to build your brand. Don't solely rely on ad revenue. Maybe sell something, digital products like we talked about. I am now selling the Nairobi map, and there's been a few sales.
Tell me about the Nairobi map.
Yeah, so, you know, I am a geographer by education after all, so I really love maps. So I have basically put from these 2.5 years that I've stayed here, all my recommendations like restaurants, cafes, shopping, you know, where I go to dance, different kinds of things on a map, and I sell that map. And
do you usually sell it only to the expatriates or immigrants from the country? So
I got some feedback that even some Kenyans have gotten like ideas from it. There's been maybe, I don't know, 10 sales by now, and yeah, like even some Kenyans, you know, maybe if you didn't grow up in Nairobi, let's say you came here when you were young to university or whatever. So people like that can also benefit from it because it's a big city, and if you're not like constantly going somewhere, it can be a bit hard to keep up with everything that is, you know, popping up. But yeah, I would say maybe like, you know, if we look at one target client, yeah, the expat would be the most obvious one.
Yeah. It was really nice talking to you. Did you enjoy the interview?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Do you really feel that we've talked about everything that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I feel like we've touched upon many things. Maybe something I can say about, you know, before people get triggered about my bad experiences and say like, oh, if you don't like it here, you can go back home. Like, obviously, like, there are things that are keeping me here. Essentially, my whole life is here now. I have my partner, I have my job, I have my, you know, housing, my friends. Like, I've built a life here. And if I ever say something that, you know, is not the most positive, like, oh, everything in Kenya is amazing, everyone is so friendly, it's because I care. Like, you know, I would not bring up any issues if I didn't, you know, give a shit. And I feel like this is something people often misunderstand with immigrants when they talk about their experiences and observations. You know, it can even be a Kenyan person in Finland. I feel like it's, you know, good to listen, like different people and their experiences, because a place like Nairobi is definitely a place with many different identities and experiences. This is not just, you know, one city with one type of person.
All right. Thank you very much for coming to Dialogues with Jagero. We started talking about it. I think we were supposed to do it last 2 weeks ago, but you were pretty much, busy with your work. Which area of work are you right now? Is it still in the?
It's still like development work type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I wish you the very best.
Thank you.
With staying in Nairobi, it's a beautiful city. I love it so much.
Indeed.
You know, wish you well with your partnership.
Thank
Do you want to get married?
Yeah, of course.
Have children?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
We want all of that, you know, traditional thing that anyone would want.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, people of the internet. You can check. How do they get your YouTube channel? What is the name of your YouTube channel?
It's just my name, Aino Luo.
Aino Luo.
Yeah.
Okay. And social media?
On Instagram and TikTok, I am the Aino Luo.
The Aino Luo. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can follow her over there, find out and enjoy the content that she creates on YouTube. Thank you very much for listening to this. Please consider subscribing. Hit on that notification bell. A lot of people do not know why they need to subscribe. If you subscribe, I get the numbers, you know, and you get to watch more. And when I got a video out, YouTube will take it upon themselves to notify you that Jagero has another video out. The other thing is that there are people that I would like to bring on this podcast. They're looking at my numbers. They're saying, this is a big platform for me. Let the guy pile some numbers, then I can come. So your numbers really, really matter. So please subscribe. If you want to send me money, because YouTube is not paying a lot, please do send me money. My number is there. If you want to speak on this podcast, you can always reach out to me. By the way, you should be able, I have a form where you can fill if you want to speak here, so that I easily gauge what you want to speak about. All right? And so until another episode, bye for now.